All right, hey everyone, happy Friday officially. Sorry for the late start, and we're just getting going with stuff. I'll roll the intro officially. We can get really going in just a little bit. Let some other people stream in, no pun intended. But yeah, as I was just chatting with Paul, well, the reason for the delay was one of the news headlines I heard. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then he's like, probably one of the most level-headed people in the room. I'm not saying this just because you're my buddy, but like one of those people that just has that like analytical sort of like, not okay, but like, okay, where? Let me see it. Like that first principles kind of approach. And so he's like, where'd you find the thing for this? And I looked around, and it turns out to be a parody fake news. So we dodged talking about that completely, which is great. But it was going to be that Solana, according to court testimony in the FTX trial, that Solana was testified to be a completely centralized blockchain that could be turned off at the FTX developer as well, which, I mean, it's close enough to the truth to where
It's believable by many people that don't like Solana. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
It probably would be retweeted by a bunch of people that don't like Solana.
I would have
With
to be
full
super
belief.
honest.
It'd be, with full belief that that's actually the case. And while it has its issues, I didn't want to assume it was that bad. So all good. All
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, I have to just say, even though I would have possibly retweeted or be like, "Whoa, if true, this is crazy" or something, I don't. I actually do research when I put out like content. So this is the news show. We just talk about stuff that we see, and
Right.
obviously, but it's not like I'm not saying, "Hey, you should do this. This does that." Like, then that's when research comes in and disclaimers come in. So, just that's my research disclaimer right here. Let me see how many people. Yeah, Twitter seems to be where most people are watching right now, which is it's nice. I'm kind of living on Twitter. I don't like being so Twitter
YouTube.
dependent, but why not?
Better than being YouTube dependent. That's for sure.
Yeah, because of the censorship thing is completely weird. Although it's easier to be deboosted and shadow banned on Twitter right now by a long shot than it is YouTube. It's a lot easier to be intentionally censored for things on YouTube, though. But for example, if someone shows up in the more replies comment on Twitter, and you respond to one of those people, you get instantly shadow banned. And the only way to get unshadow banned is you gotta either wait it out for a week or two, or you delete your response to that person. Or if you engage with too many people who have more following than followers, then you get shadow banned. Just a bunch of weird
Algo stuff. It's basically, do you want to go against the algo or do you want to go against the leftists? It's kind of like take your pick, right? It's it's one or the other. And so, just like crypto replaces the human decision-making process of centralized banks with algorithms, and algorithms aren't always perfect. But I'll put my bets on algorithms because it's software, it can have bugs, but you can improve it over time. It's hard to improve human motivation, financial motivation, to do something that you don't like. So anyway, a little sidetrack in that regard, but I'll take my bets on Twitter. I get how software works. For all we know, they're just bugs.
Yeah.
That they're not exactly the way they're supposed to be. And I'm going to give Elon the benefit of the doubt that this is like old code that's existed in Twitter pre-Elon and hasn't gotten the bugs ironed out. Plus, with respect to shadow banning and algorithms are all about heuristics. So you just kind of tweak numbers. There's no right number or wrong. Actually, there's a whole bunch of wrong numbers and there's no right number, right? It's just what's the least wrong number in these heuristic formulas, and they probably just haven't gotten it to the point that we're happy with them, but it'll improve over time.
Yes, and the final thought on that is he seems to be wanting to charge everyone to use Twitter like $1 a month or something like that. And
I hate to say it, but that's how we used to use software.
Yeah,
Back when software was a product you built and you sold it like a widget, right? You build a widget, you sell it. You build something, you sell it. You farm something, you sell it. I'm okay getting back to that model. I'm actually 100% okay with that. I think people have overly abused the everything is free and you are the product model, and we're to blame. I'm probably going to get flamed by maybe a whole bunch of your viewership, but
Heck.
believe it or not, I give Google money. Is
Oh
that
no.
evil to say? I actually give Google money. Well, give is a harsh word. That's a 4-letter word. I pay Google money for services. Why? Because I don't want to see ads.
Is that the YouTube thing?
YouTube thing, yeah. So I pay that fee to not see ads, which are very algorithmic and in many ways I hear manipulative,
Yeah.
especially because I have kids watching YouTube on
Oh
occasion.
yeah.
Rarely, but on occasion. And the ads are the last thing I want them to see.
Of course.
So,
Big pharma has
yeah.
them, especially.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Because the people that have the money in the ad, I'd almost rather everybody go and pay Google money because then Google won't be at the mercy of big pharma,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
If we
I
all just pay Google for the services, then suddenly the advertisers have no power because we're not
I
seeing
mean
any ads. How
I
awesome would that be?
don't pay Google directly, but they do get a cut out of those like super chats and things like that, which I would more than
Right.
happily use crypto for, which I kind
Well,
of
that's the
do
same
as well.
thing.
But
That's the same thing as them getting a cut of the advertising that they're
yeah.
selling through all these content creators, or the what is it, $8 to $12 a month that people pay for premium YouTube, which is me. So you're getting a cut of that. They're getting cut, and you're getting a cut. But I'd sooner get back to that model, at
Yeah.
a reasonable cost of like $1, Twitter, sure.
Yeah. That'd be fantastic. And hopefully that could eliminate a lot of the bots. Not all of them, because some of them are even using verified organizations, which are the super expensive ones. They must hack or something.
Yeah, it helps. It's twofold. It helps eliminate the bots, but most importantly, it helps eliminate the advertisers. And that was the issue that Jack Dorsey was, complaining about. It's like, I can't run this company because I can't do anything I actually want to do, or the advertisers leave and then there's no money. And so you really need to become independent of the money that controls the company.
Yeah. The
And
outside money.
you would much rather it's all outside money, right? I mean, as a company, you don't well, unless you're a coin company, then you can't print your
Yeah.
own.
Well,
So it's
sort
all
of.
outside money. But
The
really, who do you
distinction
want to
being
be?
users paying you, I would call that, it's not outside money because it's paying you for the product. It's not an advertiser who doesn't use your product paying you
Yeah.
to advertise on the product. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, you're right. It's very different because really, when a user pays you for the product, you are motivated to make the product that they want. When an advertiser pays you for the product, you're motivated to create the product that they want. And at the end of the day, the users are the ones that you really want to be beholden to, not the advertisers. And so there's some point in time, though, there's a point where there's a little bit of a crossover where we can get money from both,
Yeah.
where so long as the advertisers don't have enough power, there's enough demand from companies to advertise with you, and it's a small enough portion of the revenue stream, then it's like, okay, sure, I'll take some advertising money, but you have no say in what I do because I can cut you out because the users are backing me up, right? The users are
Yeah.
backing me up. That's the primary source of revenue. And think of advertising as icing on the cake. It's like, okay, here's additional revenue, great, but I'm only going to take what I want. I know a lot of podcasters have gone down that route that have been very successful, where they get to choose their advertisers, and they're things that they would have already promoted anyway, like they
Yeah.
already like the product.
Yeah, I'm doing a
And
little bit of
so
that stuff myself.
yeah, and that's entirely fair if as long as it's not like the only way you're making any kind of revenue. But it's tough. It's a tough model. The world's gotten accustomed to that they don't pay. They don't pay for these services. They watch and they're the product. But I think that is hopefully slowly changing, and maybe Twitter can be the first leg in that slow but steady transformation.
Well, that'd be nice. Let me hit the actual intro now and power through the stuff. All
We
right.
got the free intro.
12 minutes in. All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So, hey, everyone. Officially welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown. Happy Friday. It's going to be a great one. I'm joined by the one and only Paul Puey from Edge. How's it going, Paul?
Doing great. And I'd always like to respond with that comment and saying, like, everyone is one and only. We're all unique, amazing individuals. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I don't know if I cracked this pun before, or I mentioned it, but I have had Ryan Taylor on before, and then I had a different
He's not the
Ryan
one and
Taylor.
only.
Yeah, he's definitely not the one and only. Definitely not
Well,
the one and
name
only
wise,
on
he's
this
not the one and only.
podcast.
But if you've met both of them, they're very different people.
Very different people,
They're
but
very
definitely
different people.
not
So
the
they kind
old
of
one
are
and
one and
only on
only
this podcast.
in the heart and soul, personality, and even look. They're very different people. So name is just but a reference. It's just in computer science. It's just a pointer.
This is a
That's all it
technique.
is.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's an
But
index.
it's just an index. That's all it is. Yep. All right.
Yeah. So before we get powered through the stuff, because we have a bunch of stuff, we got a little bit of a late start. Let me know if you have a heart out and just need to go. Let me know verbally on here, which will be recorded for everyone. But who cares? Because typing in a little Jitsi chat pops up on the screen. It makes a little weird sound. So just let me know when we're starting to go, so we can.
Yeah, we can go 15 after is a good end for me. 15 after 2 p.m. my time in California.
Yeah. Well, sounds good. Make sure to if you have my NFT, go into the Digital Cash Rundown channel on my Discord, leave a super chat. You already know that though. All right, ready? Here we go. The first one, oh no, Cointelegraph. They said clarification on sharing false spot Bitcoin ETF news. Cointelegraph apologizes to its readers and discusses its investigation into what led to the posting of unverified news on X or Twitter about a spot Bitcoin ETF. First off, did you see this thing live when they tweeted about it, or like
I didn't see it
relatively
live. I
soon?
saw it after the fact. I was literally walking into work, and one of our coworkers said, "Oh my God, did you see what got posted? A little fake news, blah blah blah." And the funny is, he had DM'd it to me. He goes, "Oh my God, they just approved the spot Bitcoin ETF." And then like minutes later, he goes, "Oh nope, it was fake news, blah blah blah." And then I'd walked in and we were chatting about it. Like, wow, how did that get by? Because it's one of those pieces of fake news that's insanely easy to verify.
Yeah.
Before they could have put, you just go to the SEC website. You could have easily found out whether or not the ETF was actually approved. And so I think it's the problem with a lot of media outlets now, realizing that you have to be first to the game with big news like this, because by the time you're second, third, fourth place, you lose that many hits and all the ad revenue that you potentially can make. Once again, advertising, right? It's not about the quality. It's like how many clicks, views, CPM. That's the entire name of the game. And if you're late to the party, you just get exponential decrease in traffic. And so everyone's racing to this, and the time it takes just to verify and go to sec.gov was too much for them to do before posting and misleading everyone. And I'd say Cointelegraph has big red mark on themselves for now, probably for the next year. Like everyone is going to doubt any big news that comes out of their mouth if they are the first to market on that news. And so they've definitely created a pretty bad reputation. But as one thing I've learned is humans have really short-term memory.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
a year from now, this will be completely forgotten, if not even sooner than a year, probably 3 months.
Absolutely.
As long as they,
as long as they can survive until then. The funny thing is, back in, was it 2016 or whatever it was, 2017, probably 2016. I used to write for Cointelegraph from the end of 2015 to like into 2016. And one of my best performing stories, which I got done at like 3, 4, 5 a.m. kind of thing, was when a certain Craig Wright came out as Satoshi officially. And I just said, and of course, within the days following, there were some edits to the article that just then added like, Craig Wright comes out and says he's Satoshi, community doubts, or like some communities cast doubt or something, adding some extra stuff. But just he says he's Satoshi. He can't, like, I was the one who broke that for Cointelegraph. They really liked it because it got a lot of like, traction right away. And as it turns out, fake news.
Well, no, I mean, saying he's Satoshi is not fake.
Yes, but
right?
the Satoshi part was fake.
I mean, no, if the title said he is Satoshi, it was fake. If the title is he says he's Satoshi, that's 100% accurate, right? This guy's still to this day saying he's Satoshi's, and so you can't argue with what I say about myself. You can argue about what I say about myself, but you can't argue that what I said is not something I said. Like, I say it. Sure, you can quote me, and the quoting of what I said is true. But it creates a lot of buzz, and that was in an era where a lot of people still cared, like, who is Satoshi. I don't feel like that's really big thing anymore. Like the next person's gonna come out and say they're Satoshi, or next person to come out and say we think we know who it is. It feels like the interest in knowing has died. And that we've just accepted that maybe the world is better not knowing who it is. And I do fundamentally think there are people in this world that do know who it is, but we don't need to know. It's software. Everything that you need to know about who he is in the code. Everything that's important. He could have been child molesting, bank robber. It doesn't matter. The code that they, whatever,
or even worse, the NSA.
Yeah. Well, and funny thing is that even any worse? Because hell, it's still fully transparent. It's just a bunch of code, right? There's no backdoor that the NSA could have put into the code that any individual non-NSA developer could have put in. That and the beauty of open source. And there's if there's any credit that I give to Bitcoin across above and beyond all other blockchains, is that its code, every character of its code, has been more audited and touched by other people than any other blockchain. It is heavily looked at and audited and modified and changed and improved. So who cares if it was NSA Satoshi or bank robber, child molester, or Satoshi? The code is what it is, and it's doing. I'm not gonna say it's doing its job per the definition of what Bitcoin is supposed to be, but it's operating as people now have created the code. Yeah, exactly. It's a whole nother can of worms. We've gone down that path with a few different podcasts before, but it's doing what the current ecosystem of Bitcoiners wants it to do. I'll say that. Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's true. And we're all on the internet right now, and no one cares that Al Gore's the one who invented it,
Yeah. Al Gore claims to invent the internet, not fake news, right?
Yes. For those who don't, or maybe too young or don't get the dry sense of humor. No, he did not, but he sort of claimed to. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah.
He also said that he was going to go to Latin America so that he should study Latin before he goes.
Wow. I mean, that's a hard way of getting up on all romance languages and stuff, but
it's a really hard way.
Yeah, that's a roundabout.
It's a great way to go. It's a really good way to get Latin America and not be able to understand anything people are saying.
Yeah, but on the Cointelegraph thing, I don't want to talk too much smack, but I've never trusted, even including when I was writing for them, I never trusted Cointelegraph as a trusted source of news. It was more of a we'll publish anything, so you find really good stuff on it and also really trash stuff. And these days, I have some insider knowledge for other things, even though I don't work for them, but it could be a little rough. Now, where we get interesting, which on the same thing, I'll switch to the SEC's tweet. So SEC,
actually, no, Cointelegraph. Yes. I think we got to extend the Cointelegraph thing, because there's actually one important thing to come out of this.
Yes,
is Cointelegraph's kind of fake news was a really good signal to the market, right? A lot of people will say, oh, something is priced in or it's not priced in. And the potential impact of the spot Bitcoin ETF, what will be the impact? A lot of people will say, oh, well, sure, it'll get announced. It won't really budge the price. And it's not till money starts to come in and actually create demand for Bitcoin from people that had no access to it because they didn't want to actually hold their keys or use a Coinbase, that the price would start to ramp up. But the fake news showed that there is actually pent up demand to go and buy on the announcement of a Bitcoin ETF, and that it's not priced in yet. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we bumped to 30.5, I believe. Now, granted, that's not any huge number relative to where we were the past 3 months, but realized it was a very quick bump from, I think, 26, 27 to 30.5. That's $4,000. That's 10, 15-ish% in seconds, right? 10 to 15% in seconds to minutes. And that was on fake news. So the real question is, how much of a bump could that have been if that was for real? So this was the value of this fake news, actually, is the same or potentially more. Could it have been more as well?
Could have been.
Because how many people then said, oh, it was fake news, I'm selling.
Or it's fake news, I'm not buying. How many people, because it went went right back down.
No, exactly. So, yes and no, but you don't know how much higher it would have gone because of people that wouldn't have sold, right? And so that was the interesting nugget to come out of the event, was kind of the signaling of how baked in is the potential for an ETF into the price of Bitcoin. And then as well, how much of an effect is that going to have on other coins? And this became pretty compelling because one thing that was noticed is that it didn't impact the price of other coins, whereas most of the time altcoins trend Bitcoin. Sometimes they're lagging, sometimes they're leading, but they tend to then track Bitcoin. Now, a lot of people are also speculating on an ETH ETF following behind Bitcoin, but as of late, ETH has definitely lagged behind Bitcoin in the recent bull run. Right? It's not until I think today that it had like a 3% bump. But yeah, during that news, most of the coins didn't budge. It was only Bitcoin. Of course, the ETF was specifically Bitcoin. So these are some interesting things to glean out of it. Use these opportunities. This is what I kind of tell people. Use these opportunities, whether not real or not, fake news or not, just to see how humanity reacts to them, because they could be telling from when things actually are real. It's like a dry run. Think of it as that. It's like a fire alarm, like a fake fire alarm.
Yes.
I go, but how do we react to it? All right. Is very telling.
You can learn a lot from lies, a lot of truth in lies. Yeah. And also, money is the most honest language in the planet. And if you could just saw what the money spoke, the truth of like, what do people actually value? And they spoke. And so, but the SEC didn't take very kindly to that. They said, tweeted, careful what you read on the internet. The best source of information about the SEC is the SEC, which is true. Listen, in this case, it's true. And let's just say,
in the very objective case of was an ETF approved, that's true. Yes. In the subjective case of what is motivating and driving the decisions within the SEC, that is as opaque and unknown as you can get for a government agency. And it is one of the more confusing topics to understand, like who is pulling the strings at the SEC. And if everyone says Gary Gensler, that's not the answer, because his strings are getting pulled. So the question is, who is pulling his strings, the why, and actually, and very curiously, where does BlackRock fit into all this? This is one of the most contradicting occurrences of the past year. BlackRock is your typical. BlackRock almost defines the government. They have so much control over this country that they likely define the direction of all of politics and government. Yet at the same time, their interest in Bitcoin wholly contradicts the current administration. It's one that's been talked about numerous times through subject matter experts and politicians and financial forecasters and whatnot. And there hasn't been a genuinely good, makes sense correlation revelation around this. So this is still like the one of the greater mysteries of our current year that I'd love to better understand. That I wish I can kind of give your listeners more insight to, but it really is one of the kind of unknown little mysteries. And you think BlackRock, sure, they just want money. Bitcoin, it's a product, they can sell it. Great. Well, that in a way is true from a government's point of view, because when people sell, they make money. When they make money, they pay taxes. Right? You pay taxes, government gets money. And so why such a discerned kind of bipolar response to the technology, at least with current administration? We don't know.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I don't want to be too political on this show specifically, but it does seem.
Yeah, right. Your show's political. Come on. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely not explicitly political, but it is political by the after effect of of the truth that it speaks.
We're not making political commentary. It's not a political commentary show, but it's going to have political opinions. And heck, crypto, you can't not have political opinions and be in crypto.
It's not like a partisan politics show, that's for sure. But the point is, I get the feeling that a lot of there's not one agenda behind the current U.S. administration. It just seems more like a group of people are in power and they're kind of just like picking and choosing, like, hey, what can we all get from this? And so it's not like the man at the head is making any decisions, including which direction to walk after a speech. I don't think he's making those.
I think it's pretty understood that he's not making any decisions. He's not making any calls. And it's quote unquote the administration. And I think in no time in history of kind of a U.S. presidency has the administration, which follows the name of the person that's supposed to be making the shots, have been more in control than this current one. They say it's the Trump administration, the Biden administration, the Obama administration. Well, they kind of went hand in hand with that person whose name is associated to the administration. This is the one time when there's like no association. This person is like, who is it in the phone? was it Trump or Elon that said it's like a weekend at Bernie's, kind of a president, right? You just kind of puppeteering him around.
Yeah.
So that's in a way, okay, sure. If you are able to make the lives of the majority of the citizens better, then okay, sure, then just be the puppet. But if you're not able to do that and you're making bad decisions, or at least ones that I deem as bad, then
Yeah, of course.
then we want to replace the administration,
Well,
whatever that is.
that's exactly it. And this does feel like the first time where it's more explicitly, it's not like an agenda. It's just like at the whim of a bunch of special interest agendas specifically, which are always a factor in this. And so it's kind of like, let me just, I guess, give the crypto analogy, just tie it back to crypto, right? Is like, let's just say, like, if Bitcoin and Ethereum were very clear in what they were supposed to do, and at some point you had outside special interests, namely like L2 manufacturers or whatever, starting to sort of influence some development decisions on both. That's what it seems like from my perspective. Now, however, it's not like the entire purpose of each of these projects is just to give each special interest what they want. Whereas it seems kind of like that with the administration, where that's why it seems almost like schizophrenic at times, is because it's not acting with a cohesive mission. It's just like, let me make this group happy, let me make that group happy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, that's the political commentary for now.
And a lot of it is making them happy because they're the people that put those politicians into power. They're the ones that donated significant amounts of money. Ironically, SBF had donated quite a bit of money to the current administration, but he's no longer relevant. There's no money that he has to donate. And so therefore, it's actually okay to shit on his entire industry. He kind of almost gave them the green light. He unlocked the handcuffs that the administration may have had, whether they be small finger handcuffs, in making sure that crypto was not the super bad guy, because basically he gave them money. In a way, that's like the one thing that SBF did to the benefit of the crypto industry. Ironically, though, it sucked because he did it using user funds. And so if he was able to do that using user funds and somehow get the money back in some other way, then, well, he pulled an amazing fast one to everyone's advantage. But didn't work out that way. Left a black eye, lost users' money to an administration that now doesn't care about crypto. Right. So we basically gave an administration, I think it was $10+ million from users' money. That same administration now is anti-crypto and created the worst set of kind of public news around the Bitcoin crypto ecosystem, that shots heard around the world about, quote unquote, how bad crypto is and how people lose money on it. It was like the worst 3 strikes you could have in one event through, by and large, one person. So
as evil as he looks.
Yeah. So it definitely was unfortunate. And, being the self-custody maxi that I am, probably that's the only thing good. Barely. Only thing good is like, well, hold your own keys, right? We've been saying that for 10 years. That's like not interesting anymore.
It could advance the Thor chain side of things. Who knows?
So that people don't have to use services like FTX. Right?
Yes, I think it could. That could be the silver lining. But a lot of this is only knowable in retrospect. But speaking of like rug pulls, since it's a very merry subject to have, let's go into Reddit. So Reddit is winding down blockchain-based community points, according to TechCrunch. And then
I remember. Do anyone remember the name Ryan X Charles?
Yeah,
that name ring a bell.
He's been
the
on
big
this
BSV guy now. He's been on a show. He's been a show. Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's been. I don't know. I don't know.
Reddit
he's
that he had worked
not
for? I think it was Reddit that he had worked for way back. I think it was Reddit. In an effort to get them to. Well, no, they wanted to incorporate crypto into Reddit, and I think specifically Bitcoin. And he worked with them briefly on the effort to do that. And I talked with him in San Francisco for like an hour once, just one-on-one with him at a coffee shop. And he had left Reddit, obviously, to launch some of his own projects in the Bitcoin space at the time. And if I recall, and Ryan, I apologize if I'm misrepresenting our conversation, but recall that he felt like Reddit was not quite, couldn't quite find the fit of how or why to put Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin, but definitely like crypto, into the product. And that kind of resonates because I'll be honest, like the concept of the reward token in Reddit and reward tokens in general, them being fully centralized versus on a blockchain, I didn't find a huge advantage to them being on a chain because the benefits of being on a chain actually remove the reason why you want loyalty points to begin with. So if you think of the benefits of being on chain, right? You have the most amazing free flow of funds to anyone anywhere in the world, right? You could transfer these tokens, these nuggets, these points, these rewards, these miles to anyone anywhere in the world. So what have you just done with a like loyalty point? You just made it unloyal.
Yeah. Well, what you did make it is like fungible and tradable. And so
Correct.
that's where
But is that what you want as someone issuing points? Now, I don't know exactly how Reddit was going to, issue out or what they were going to use the currency for, but usually most centralized services issue these points as a form of loyalty, meaning we give them to you. Now, what you can do is get benefits from us because you have been loyal, and we want to reward you for being loyal. There's a reason why, like, go try taking your miles and transferring them to someone else. Your miles from like United American, you lose like 30% of them, some insane amount by doing that transfer because they don't really want you to transfer it. They want that reward to go to you and for you to be loyal. Because if you can transfer it, that makes it easier for you to say, these 200,000 miles, I want to switch from United to American, and I'll just trade those miles for American miles, probably 1-for-1. And you've given up the loyalty side. The same reason why you can't just transfer your platinum status from one airline to another. It's not fungible. They don't want it to be fungible. It's against the motivation. And if that's what Reddit was really trying to achieve with respect to this kind of loyalty, okay, they give people these points, then there's no advantage to a blockchain because the whole blockchain is to make things fungible, which is a good thing for many assets, but just not necessarily a good thing for this asset.
Well, there is a nuance like layer in that where I do find it actually very useful that I kind of didn't really understand too much because I use a lot of gift cards for crypto because you can buy it with digital cash as well as cash. And it seems like having something like a gift point as a fungible thing on a blockchain, you can easily swap for something else, which is there's some hurdle, there's some centralized providers behind, like BitRefill, for example, that kind of does that. But I think it does still benefit the company because if I want to pay you, if I want to pay you, for example, with money, I have to actually get liquid capital to pay you. But if I pay you in gift credits, then I'm paying you in things that are worth money, which is, future goods and services. But a lot of businesses are usually have a lot more of that on hand than liquid capital to pay people. It's kind of like pre-sales. So if they sold, like if they're cash poor, let's just say, because they have actual cash payments to make, they can sell a bunch of gift credit and they will have to honor that at some point in the future with goods and services, but now they have actual fungible money they can use outside of that business to pay employees and things like that and buy things. And if they have to actually deliver goods and services later, that's easier for them. And so they're incentivized to do that kind of thing. And so, for example, Reddit's community points or whatever, I don't really know what Reddit's model is there, but it could be that it's a way to pay someone something that has a real market value but does not cost liquid capital to them in the short term, right? It could be like a deferring of that. Although, to be honest, with Reddit and stuff, in this case, I think it was just more of let's get in on the crypto scam thingy.
Oh yeah, the buzzword soup type of thing, just kind of like what is it, Long Island blockchain iced tea or something like that, just to put the buzzwords into the product. For sure was that.
There's just a maximizer.
Yeah, exactly. And with respect to the rewards points and credits, you bring up a good point with like the Starbucks. Question is that something that's on the minds of most companies? Is this the reason why they are issuing these gift cards? Is it basically a a way to front the money that they don't currently have? Is that the method? Or is it truly because they want people returning over and over again? I mean, in the case of Starbucks, they obviously have a lot of money, and getting cash flow ahead of delivering product is not in any way, shape, or form likely the purpose of it, because the rewards are very, very, very effective. Like, people load up their rewards into the app, if anything, which is very non-transferable, and keep coming back, and they get little points for coming back, and they gamify it and whatnot. They give you a little, like, 50 cents off and whatnot. And so that's what's classically considered like rewards, rewards points, as well as like prepaid credit, is to keep someone loyal.
A little bit of a different thing.
It's a little bit different than a reward such as like a mileage reward, except that a mileage can be used to purchase the same product. It just has a different unit of account, right? A mile is not equivalent to $1, whereas a Starbucks gift card is dollar based and it buys that exact dollar amount. Is that what Reddit was considering? Like, this is a dollar-based card? I don't believe that's what their product was meant to be, especially because it was a free-floating cryptocurrency, meaning it couldn't really be pegged to the dollar. At best, it could be pegged to some level of services in Reddit that you could acquire with those points. And if it was in that model, then your ability to pay someone with that credit really goes down. Right, to actually use it as a currency. Hey, we don't have the money to pay you, but we'll give you a bunch of these, Starbucks points that are not gift card credit, they're points. That really goes down. Those points, much more useful for, once again, rewards, retention, loyalty. And that's where blockchains, they don't fit very well for that cases. So many companies have come across our plate that say, hey, we got it. We're going to do loyalty points on the blockchain. I don't know of one yet that's actually succeeded in doing that. And I think this motivation problem is kind of the issue.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I think it makes sense, not like the gift credit stuff does make sense. That's a different discussion. But the loyalty points, first off, I think you'd have to make them in some way non-transferable, which I think you can do with some tokens and stuff. You can make them.
You can, but now why are you using a blockchain? Becomes the question.
First off,
other than marketing buzz.
Yes, that you could outsource infrastructure to something else rather than, which I guess you could.
That's gonna. You can outsource it, but guess what? You're still paying. You're still paying to be able to access that info. You're paying a transaction fee, and you're paying probably API costs to query the blockchain, and then you're paying more for blockchain developers to be able to deal with it. Guaranteed, 100%. It is in every way, shape, and form cheaper to make that a centralized server to deal with the points of your platform.
Yeah, absolutely true. Now, where it might make sense in the future is if people start to have a little bit more like consistent wallet management, like they got just one wallet for all their things. And so then the company can just issue you points and send them and forget about it. They don't have to manage your accounts. What email do you have? Did you lose access to your email? Oh, let's just figure out, like, all that nonsense.
That's a good point in the world. I think you're right.
But not today, tomorrow.
Once a self-custody crypto wallet is ubiquitous in the hands of the population, you're absolutely right. It's like, why are you going to make me download your weird, app to hold your weird points when I've already got an Ethereum address? Just send me the token. All right. From the viewpoint of how to hold it, right now it's actually harder to hold crypto. Most people are like, oh my God, how do I have to go deal with seed words, blah, 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 and whatnot. Whereas, sure, I'll just put in my phone number and you'll send me a text message and I'm logged into the Starbucks app. Right. That's it. That's considered easy. But you're right. That becomes actually considered harder once there's standardization and ubiquitous use of crypto wallet apps. Then, yeah, there might be some use case. Although the bummer about that, though, is, have you used the Starbucks app by any chance?
One time, only because some friend of mine gave me some credit in exchange for stuff. And
so I feel like the points in that app are less the value than the app itself. And I don't use it much because I barely ever go to Starbucks, but a few times, usually when I'm traveling, because there's like no other decent coffee.
We already know that you have better taste than that, but yes.
I know we're coffee drinkers. We know the two of us already know what good coffee's like and what mediocre. But when in a pinch, there's Starbucks. And so I've used the app as most like trying to understand like, hey, what's the model here? What's the psyche that they're targeting? And it is very much like the loyalty, the convenience. I remember standing in line at an airport. I'm like, oh, I can order from here. I get out of line and my drink's ready before the person in front of me even got to order theirs because they didn't know about the app. I find where to go, find where the stores are, pre-order from like miles away, then head to the stores. You know, what I mean, it's really like the direct engagement, one-to-one, and less about, oh, this thing holds my points. It happens to also hold your points, but it's about everything else in the app. So I think the crypto wallet holding points solves kind of half, not even like less than half of the problem, because then how you use the points, that becomes the interesting thing, because they're not just money anymore, right? Like we agreed, points are more about loyalty, but then how you use them is an entire application in and of itself that isn't just simply send and receive, you know, the way maybe a gift card would be, right? Where it's just a dollar-based coin. So this is a rabbit hole. I'm not sure this is even part of the news that we were going to talk about. How do we digress onto this one? Where did we start from? We were talking about something else.
They rugged. But that's the thing.
They rugged. That's right. They rugged. Reddit.
And so let me hit on this tweet from Pledator, who, whatever. Anyway, he says, Reddit admins told our cryptocurrency moderators beforehand, and 3 moderators sold Moon tokens on insider information. Moon price dropped 22% minutes before the announcement was posted. Here's a list of the et cetera. So yeah, insider trading, no surprise, of course, it's going to happen. But I guess to just circle back, Jen Psaki style on the whole, why do you care about tokens and stuff? The one thing that drives me nuts is centralized blockchains more than centralized other things, because more than like regular fiat, because at least it's like, wow, it's just like you're going through all the pain in the butt to do something that provides no benefit, no actual decentralization benefit. So the fact is, like, this token, it's like tied to a centralized company, basically. And so when the centralized company does a centralized thing because of regulatory pressure, probably, then all of a sudden the token's worthless. Like, that's not the point. Like, Bitcoin got banned so many times, right? The China ban, the this and that ban. There's so many things, and it just like doesn't care because the free market doesn't care necessarily. But this thing, like, who's going to use the Moon tokens outside of Reddit unless they're going to say, oh, the our crypto people, the Moon token now works in our Discord as well. And okay, maybe.
No, you're basically referring to, at the extreme, you're referring to every single stablecoin. Like,
yes,
once the U.S. government drops the dollar because it's worthless, what are we going to do with all of these tokens on the Ethereum blockchain? Now, granted, that's just a much larger entity than Reddit, and so therefore the dropping of the dollar is far less likely than the dropping of the global economy token. Yeah, right. However, it is basically a fairly centralized authority that is issuing the value that is backing this token, the same way that Reddit was backing the value of Moon through some mechanism of saying you could redeem this value somewhere within their ecosystem. So it's not much different. But for a company that thinks that they can get big enough where people will hold it and want that backing, and they think that the company will provide the value such that the token will not just retain but increase in value, then that's a fair belief. It's just that it's a full slope of insanely large, very hard to displace, very likely that token will have value for the foreseeable set of decades, to, oh my God, you're so small and barely worth anything that it at the snap of a finger, this thing is zero. But everything in between, right? You've got everything in between there. Right? What's a fairly large company? If Apple were to issue their own token and it survived several years worth, could that, heck, they've got a value larger than many countries, right? Yeah. And so what point is a country and a company, really overlap? I mean,
yeah, thing about countries is they're a lot better at using force to get what they want. Whereas like Apple doesn't have a standing army. So even if Apple's richer than some countries, those countries might have more influence are harder influenced within their borders
Yeah.
or jurisdictions because of the ability to use force.
I
Whereas
like to
in
say that a large company really is a small country. And they
yeah,
say, hey, but they don't have an army and blah, blah, blah. I go,
I
try
mean
walking into middle of Apple's spaceship and kicking someone in the nuts. I
yeah,
guarantee you Apple's army would come and put you in Apple jail or kick you out.
yeah, like
And
you get locked out of your device.
well, that too as well, right? Even when you've left Apple, you
That's a
basically
way
lose
worse than
citizen.
imprisonment.
You lose you lose your citizenship into the Apple ecosystem. Um,
Yeah, I mean
so
Disney had their
every
own private police and everything in Florida before sort of Ron
yeah, like in their theme
DeSantis,
parks.
you
Once
know,
you're in the
yeah,
theme park of Disney, you're like in a world, or a
yeah,
land, and they have their own police, and they will kick you out or put you in a little Disney jail if you misbehave according to their rules. So
the
it is a
Disney People's Republic of Florida.
they've got their own rules, and just like most states, the rules have to be kind of like a subset of the rules of the parent geography. Same thing with Disney. They're a subset of the rules within Florida if it's Disney World. Um, but they are just a mini country. If you think about
Yeah,
it,
not
they
even
really
that many
are.
anymore. Let's hit
Yeah.
on the THORSwap thing
Oh
because
yeah, very relevant
so
to us, obviously.
THORSwap went down because regulatory pressure, whatever.
They
There's
took
some
it down themselves. They took themselves
yeah
down.
they took themselves. THORSwap it was probably the leading. It's one of the bigger front ends for THORChain. It allows you to interact with
And
THORChain.
APIs too.
Yes, and they
We
went
use the
down.
API for full disclosure. Edge does use the THORSwap
Yes.
API for the DEX aggregator side of THORChain. We access THORChain directly when you're doing a swap that THORChain can handle natively. But as soon as it aggregates through a DEX such as a Uniswap, SushiSwap, or whatnot, then it goes through THORSwap, or they quote it, they quote and they route the transaction. So just transparency, so people know that I'm talking about something that actually is a part of our app.
Yeah. It's so they came back online after basically THORChain and THORSwap in particular had been allegedly used to swap, used by a hacker to swap stolen funds for other things.
Yeah.
And basically, the highlight paragraph is what's changed? Other than the shiny new terms of service, users won't notice a thing. Behind the scenes, we've partnered with an industry leader to put some extra guardrails in place to help prevent the flow of illicit funds. Now, first of all, what do you think that means?
Oh, it could mean a number of things, but likely it's going to be address blacklisting, amount limits, the same kind of things that centralized services will use to determine, determine whether or not they should execute an exchange. So think services like a Changely or a ChangeNow, Godex.
Yeah.
All of them receive funds, and they're like, whoa, well, what's the size of this thing? This is like fairly large. Therefore, let's go looking on chain back a few transactions as to where the money might have come from. Is this related to an address that we've seen or a contract that has been seen? And there's a lot of services now that you can go to say, well, let's go and check these addresses and see whether it might be used for some type of illicit transaction. And then based on that, say, yes, we're going to reject or allow this transaction to go through our interface. And this was one of the more hotly debated topics I know definitely on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. I'm sorry, Elon.
Not
On
yet.
Twitter a few weeks back before THORSwap took themselves down. And I know I've met her once or twice, but Tevano on Twitter, the former lead developer and founder of, what was it called at the time here? Now working for MetaMask, but
Yeah, that
at the
individual
time,
unfortunately annoys me based on
and that's
these
fair. I get it,
exchanges.
because
But
she's admittedly she's quite a smart individual. Like her ability to go and do chain analysis, like I don't know if she's doing it by hand or whatnot. She's provided quite a lot of valuable insights from the viewpoint of stolen funds and tracking funds and where they. I get the value that she's providing to the ecosystem, and I think a lot of people
yeah,
have
it's
respect
great.
for that. 'Cause I have no time and interest to do that, because that's not even her job. She just does it, to give insight to the industry. Now, when she had put out a tweet that THORChain was nothing more than a money laundering site being used by criminals and hackers, blah, 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 and they should do something about it. This is the first time I had like really major issues with that stance, because A, she told them that they needed to do something about it, but B, didn't say what. And when really pressed on what to do, she didn't give a concise answer that really would stop the problem. Just, oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, we know a lot of the funds are over a certain amount, so why don't you stop people from trading large amounts? I'm like, well, it's a blockchain. It takes an intern who's studied crypto for a year and done
Yeah.
2 years worth of JavaScript coding to automate smaller amounts.
But for
They're
any of
like,
us
it's like,
OGs, all you need to do is just 1 megabyte block size limit.
once it's big, well, that's
Just
that's the
that's
block
just a
size
troll.
limit. Yeah,
That's a troll.
that's troll comment, right? Because like you can't send that much money with only 1 meg, right? You only got 1 meg, can't send that
Yeah.
much money, and so it would have been trivial
Make
to
them
do
use the
that. And
Lightning
these
Network.
people,
That'll do it. That actually restricts by amount. But sorry.
by a lot. So,
Yeah.
but although then it adds in some ways, better privacy. So I think that was like such a poor response. But the interesting thing is that it wasn't that it was a poor response. It's that there is no good response,
Mm-hmm.
right? What are the things that you really can do to have prevented these bad actors from pushing money through Thorchain? And if you truly believe in a kind of, I hate the word decentralized, but a permissionless financial system, there's not much that you can do. I did like one thing that she said is that why aren't you guys focused more on legitimate use cases? Now, I liked and disliked that comment. I liked it in the sense that
I
that
like this
actually is a
the
fundamental
sentiment.
theory I have, is that for anything that could be deemed as illicit technology or technology that promotes illicit behavior, the number one thing that we could do as builders is get that into the hands of people that aren't illicit actors.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly believe that on the privacy front. I believe that on the cryptocurrency front. I believe that on the private cryptocurrency front, right? Using private cryptocurrencies for legitimate transactions. So I kind of resonated with that comment that she had. What I didn't like is that why aren't you guys doing something, blah, 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 blah. Well, I mean, they're protocol developers, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
not the full stack of full marketing, business development. They don't go door to door knocking, hey, go and use Thorchain for good things. That's what kind of the ecosystem of followers and advocates start. That's what they do. Just like Bitcoin doesn't have. Like, how do you say, hey, I wish Bitcoin was
Mm-hmm.
promoted more to good people? It's not necessarily the way it works. So
Yeah.
while I
And
agree,
not to mention, by the way,
we need to do that, but not
uh,
necessarily anyone or group of people.
to my knowledge, I have not seen Thorchain ever promoted as a something you can do illicit things with, other than it's permissionless, but mostly seems to be very like boring in the way it's been promoted, is in boring and normie. But also, to me, it is absolutely mind-boggling that it's the old weird fiat money laundering mentality. But like, if I wanted to be private and I got a bunch of Bitcoin, I would probably go right to the Whirlpool and coin join it and do some other stuff like that. Run node over Tor, all this stuff. I wouldn't move it to a super transparent swap blockchain protocol and swap it for an even more transparent asset. Like somehow they're thinking that they're laundering. What laundering, as I tweeted before, is when poor people try to achieve financial privacy. They call it money laundering. And so, but they're not even getting privacy. It's just like they stole
That's full
money.
privacy.
That's bad. And now they're swapping it to a different money. And then they're angry at whoever's letting them swap. But the money was still stolen before and it's still stolen after. And you
Yeah.
can see it. Why is this Thorchain's problem? Not only why is it their problem, but why is it like it? It's almost seems like I mean, I'm not saying with Tay, for example. I think that's just more like programming of like, this is what we've been taught happens with money. But from like the government perspective, this seems like a setup for, this seems almost like a pretext to try to shut down on ramps and off ramps into crypto or through crypto.
From a viewpoint of put yourselves in the shoes of an illicit actor trying to launder money. You're right. Thorchain is the most transparent way to swap from one asset to another. You're better off going through Binance. However, I will give credit to the theory of why they might be using it, which is you may have an asset that's very difficult to quote unquote launder on its own chain, and you're trying to convert it into an asset that is much easier to launder on its own chain. So case in point, Ethereum tends to be very difficult to launder, or at least until other laundering technology had come out. right? Basic Ethereum was terrible, single address, not really a good way to have any level of privacy. Bitcoin and UTXO currencies like Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, however, already had, and for a long time have had mixers. So if what you stole was on the Ethereum blockchain, getting that into Bitcoin enabled you to use technology that therefore could mask the funds. And by going through Thorchain, you knew that you were going permissionless and that you wouldn't end up locked up in Binance, like Binance locking up the money if they had detected that. So that is that's at least, once again, think like a criminal and see what would you do. So that's where I could see Tay thinking like, okay, this is probably what they're doing, and Thorchain's facilitating it. And I just don't think there's anything you can necessarily do about that per se, other than, yes, let's not make 90% of the traffic be illicit actors. Let's actually get it adopted
5%.
by the masses, right? And well, I don't know if it was it 95%, or you said it was 5%.
It was
I heard it
5%.
was high.
Well, it seemed to be high, but then it was like over their volume in like the year period, or I forget what the period was.
Oh
But
yeah, the year period, but in a very small period of
yeah,
time, it was of a vast majority because it was such a big spike. And so the key is, yeah, we need to make it where you're not using. I hate to say, no offense to THORSwap, but that's not something I'm sending my mom to go, swap Bitcoin for dollars or take out a loan or whatnot. It's still like a power user thing. And I give the same criticism to a lot of privacy-based tools. Like those are power user things where the people who are using them are probably trying to hide something, like most of the people using them. And so until you achieve what I call like there's always that term like the AOL moment where everyone at AOL came onto the internet and suddenly the internet became big. The similar moment for privacy, which I'll also probably get some heat for, is like Apple moment, where Apple turned on iMessage and suddenly everybody got privacy. And so that kind of moment for something like Thorchain, where everyone just suddenly started using it. It became the de facto. It had enough liquidity where it wiped out a lot of centralized exchanges, and everyone was using it. Then it's like, oh, the bad actors are just a subset of the users, and you can't remove this tool that's being used by the population for legitimate purposes just because a few bad actors are using it. You'd have to eliminate much of the tooling that our world has for anything, whether it be building houses, riding a bike, driving cars, taking airplanes. You can't eliminate that because a few bad actors use it. And that's the simple argument. That's the one argument you really have holding this technology up against a lot of regulatory criticism. But until you get there, you don't have that argument.
absolutely. Well, lightning round super chat. We had a super chat. You probably have to take off pretty soon. But Hilawe, hi Hilawe, said two questions real quick. One, separating UI providers from Thorchain/Maya protocol was such a smart move in retrospect, meaning the UIs are run by different teams, not like Uniswap kind of did, or not like Uniswap, but also Tornado Cash. But he says, two, will Edge support Maya swaps, Maya protocol swaps?
Are you sure this is some super chat person? This is not just you?
No, it's you know who Hilawe is? You must have met him before, right?
Not by that handle. Maybe I have. But
been in Acapulco, places like that.
Oh, okay.
Probably ran into him there.
I'll probably be at the next hour in Acapulco. Okay, cool. But when is mostly hinged on Maya having full compatibility with existing Thorchain, including at the API level. I talked to the developers, and one of the things that we're fairly reliant on is the API identical API for compatibility. Otherwise, we have to have like a giant fork and code base conditionalizing it between Thorchain and Maya. So once they have that, and I know they were talking like 9 Realms to potentially get support for Maya. And for those of you who don't know, 9 Realms is I think pretty much for-profit company that's funded to help in protocol and infrastructure for Thorchain. And they potentially could as well assist with Maya. And if they did, that would alleviate a lot of what we would need. So it is a protocol we're interested in, but once again, just need that compatibility. Probably have to revisit that. Maybe that compatibility is already there through some other services. But last we had talked, they said that there was coming, but not there yet.
Yeah, I believe they might be. I saw some. I don't want to spill potential news or whatever that might be fake news. Again, I already almost did that on the show, but there might be a goal of trying to get onto THORSwap and therefore swap kit, and therefore just there you go. It's just like right.
Got
in
it.
there,
Okay. We don't use SwapKit for base Thorchain transactions, only for the DEX aggregator. And so that would only give a subset of our functionality. We want to go directly to the chain. It saves cost as well for the users.
Yeah.
And so I think the closest would be, the infrastructure that Nine Realms provides would be pretty key. And plus, I know that the Maya team had admitted that they're about, generally speaking, 2 to 3 months behind on Thorchain development. So whatever APIs and features a Thorchain rolls out, Maya gets maybe 2 to 3 months behind. Maybe that's changed since I last talked to them.
I think it's a sort of like the way they're doing business for now. Just
and that's fair.
Partially to just make sure nothing catastrophic happens with Thorchain. So if Thorchain has to go down because they implemented some new thing, people can still use Maya to swap in the assets. It's kind of like a redundancy.
With that comes potential incompatibility. So if we hop onto some API on Thorchain, and we don't hop onto their new updated APIs that frequently though, but if we were to, then our code would break for the use of Maya. So that's a little bit of a concern. We definitely don't want to have 2 blocks of code, one for each, because they're so similar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
of course.
Hopefully that answered that question.
Do you have time to hit on the library thing, or do I solo that one?
Is that a lightning round?
Yes.
Thing. It's a lightning round. We could do a 1-2 minute answer, and then I do have to bounce.
Yes. All right. So, LBRY Inc. is winding down. The LBRY network is unaffected. Odyssey and other assets will undergo a legal process to satisfy debts, but Odyssey has a bright future ahead. Thank you for everyone who fought for online freedom. A final goodbye post is in this first reply. So, LBRY is the company that developed the LBRY blockchain, and it seems like they're going away. They lost their fight with the SEC. They got sued, and Odyssey, which is the big front end, which you might even be watching on right now, is going to take a hit because of this in some way. I don't know if it's from they're going to have to pay some stuff. They might have to switch blockchains. I don't know, but the LBRY blockchain is a allegedly decentralized Bitcoin-based blockchain. However, I don't personally know what the prospects are like for it surviving once the company that basically did everything for it kind of goes away. I'm sure it'll still persist, but it might be like a Steam after Justin Sun's buyout type situation. But anyway, sad day. Any thought?
Yeah, my main thought is there are shittier, more unused chains that still survive to this day.
Very persistent.
So think Feathercoin, right? I mean, like old school 2014. Like, who the hell is using this thing? Grosstal Coin, which we support in Edge. Actually, both those assets we support in Edge because we were, back 2017, 2018, and we had known some of the developers there. But the point is, like, they're still around. It doesn't take much to keep a blockchain going. It just gets much more. It gets closer to being like its early centralization era. Like just like Bitcoin only had one node when it was founded and got more nodes. But then as it shrinks, it just has fewer and fewer nodes. And to the point where there might be one node, but to the end user, it looks like it still functions. And so same thing could happen with LBRY, but the fact that it actually has a user base that's using it, that cares about it, it will probably have orders of magnitude more kind of, I hate that word again, decentralization or distribution of nodes than some of the many thousands of cryptos, and I'm not talking token cryptos, I'm talking blockchains that still exist to this day, and you could still transact on, and you can even trade some of these assets, even though they're just by and large almost completely unused. So I think it still has a future ahead of it, and it's made a big enough name for itself that people continue to develop it to try to keep it alive because it has an actual use case. I think that hopefully satisfies things.
Thanks for being on. Pollinator with 2 L's on Twitter. Edge.
Watch out for the scammers.
Right? And download
the
Edge wallet.
Yep.
It is a fantastic wallet. I do use it and recommend it. And don't forget your.
We should have updates for those Zcash fans, for you privacy focused Zcash fans. We should have an update early next week that finally uses their 2.0 SDK, which will give you a whole bunch of things: faster synchronization, a little bit faster synchronization. Woo! Look at all those balloons! Yay! Faster synchronization, spend before sync, which is something that I was asking out of Zuko a year ago in September in New York. I have a picture with them saying, why in the world does your SDK not allow people to spend the money they already have without waiting for it to sync with the entire blockchain? So, you're right. Let's fix that. They finally have that out now. But then with that as well, because they fixed a few bugs in the SDK, we'll have unified address and auto shielding as well. So you can send transparent funds into Edge and it gets automatically shielded. So you never hold transparent in the clear surveillance coins. Instead, you hold nice shielded Zcash, Zebra coins. So anyway, that's a little update from us. And let us know any feedback. So early next week, think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We should
I will definitely let you know. So don't forget, taxation is theft. Your phone is spying on you. Fiat is a scam. Live on crypto before it's too late. Download Edge and have a good weekend. Bye-bye, guys.
Take care.